Absolutely.
Always right on track if we're listening.
Yes.
So yeah, let's get into all things esoteric with money.
Sounds good.
I was thinking that as therapists and coaches, we often get, money, sex, and love, I guess, are the big three things. And in each of those areas, trauma patterns can present. And I feel like we're much more inclined, or at least I am, I'll speak for myself, to really delve into when a complaint is brought to session about a relationship, delving into, okay, what's in the unconscious, what kind of shadow patterns are we looking at? But money is one that is equally rich. And I haven't been as open to exploration of how trauma shows up in that realm as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And, I'm assuming you're using the definition of trauma similar to the definition that Gabor Mate uses. And
Yeah.
I really love that definition. And when you emailed me about the topic, I sat in meditation and a couple of things came through. And one of the things that came through to me was that in this kind of 3D egoic consciousness that we're in, that money has actually become a symbol of trauma. And I think we can see that in our world. And many of us have had experiences of that. And the other thing that struck me is that this actually, it cuts across all different socioeconomic stratas, because it really has nothing to do with whether you're poor or rich or in the middle. And there's a lot of wounding, a lot of trauma amongst wealthy people I've worked with in the past with really high net worth individuals. And I could see the trauma associated with money for them. And, of course, people who are experiencing scarcity or poverty, there's a lot of trauma around that. And even in the middle, so people who are in the middle classes. So it's something that really is universal. It's a universal trauma pattern. And where I feel we're moving with it is, and this sounds maybe like an unattainable ideal, but I think where we're moving is to, you and I talked about this a couple of years back, reclaiming money for the divine and actually converting money into a symbol of our divinity and our wholeness, as opposed to a symbol of our trauma.
That's trauma transcendence.
It is, exactly. Exactly.
And may I say, in the same way as in a conflict relationship, there's a doorway to alchemize it back into the divinity of the heart-to-heart connection. Like, how can any conflictual relationship bring us back to the essence of who we are really as divine, powerful beings? So why not do that with money?
Absolutely. And, I know that all sounds esoteric, but we're
all into it. We're all into it. Go for it.
I know. Well, because sometimes when we're talking about esoteric things, they feel like it's like related to absolute truth, or, it's some unattainable ideal. But I feel this is the direction we're moving in with healing work. Like it's going beyond traditional psychotherapy or traditional emotional healing processes and modalities. And what I really appreciated, Kaya, was your definition of trauma transcendence. And you said it refers to peeling away the trauma-based consciousness into authenticity and non-dualism. And I thought, that is it exactly. Because the other thing that came up for me is how, sometimes I wonder whether the term transcendence is misinterpreted and somehow becomes equated with spiritual bypassing. And what I really Yeah.
It can be associated with bypassing. I like the word, but I've thought the same things that you're thinking now. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I really appreciate your definition, because I feel it addresses that in how you referred to authenticity, the authenticity piece, and understanding that definition as meaning, being able to connect with our feelings, our emotions, and our bodies. And to me, that's the antithesis to spiritual bypassing. But you also included the transcendence piece in there, which was also part of that, the non-dualism, which is really being able to start establishing our witnesses and being able to see our attachments and aversions, and being able to release those attachments or reconcile those attachments and aversions. And when I'm talking about attachments, I'm not talking about it in the traditional psychological sense of healthy attachment that you need when you're an infant or a child with your parents in order to have your developmental needs met. But we're talking about attachments in a different way, and in the sense of the grasping mind, or aversions, the mind that's saying no or pushing things away, and how that keeps us in this cycle of feeling imbalanced and really not being in our divine core, not being in our wholeness. And I think that's also a byproduct of trauma. I think trauma kind of triggers us into polarity, into dualism more. I don't know what your thoughts are about that.
Yeah, I agree. It's the cycle of the samsara, the hell realm, the unending loop, and that attachment, let's call it sticky attachment, not loving kind attachment.
Yes, that's
that attachment. When it shows up as either it shows up as some extreme response, especially around money, either fear of losing or extreme hoarding, even over. Like, it can be indulgence or it can be avoidance, but there's fear, there's a separateness to it. There's a separate feel to it. So trauma is so embedded into it because it's this sense of, I need to be anywhere else but here, right?
Absolutely.
And that cycling through anywhere else but here is the trauma response. Like, I can't be right here, right now.
You hit the nail on the head. And, I'm also aware it's avoiding being present, being in the moment, and being embodied too. And so that's why I feel the embodiment piece is really, really important. And there are so many different layers to the money trauma, and we all have some form of money trauma. There isn't a soul on the planet that doesn't, unless they're extremely enlightened, of course, because then they've transcended that. But I think we all have that, and I think it's imprinted in the collective as well.
Yes. It's not just the micro and inner childhood wounding, it's the whole collective thing.
Oh, yeah. And that's how it's, by that definition of trauma, it's not, Gabor Mates, is not what happens to us, it's what happens inside of us as a result of what happened to us. That's why we see, and he talks about, us then acting out of our fears and our pains. And we see that going on, like, on the collective stage all the time with money issues, and it's going on the micro level too in our own individual lives, even if we don't think it is. Most of the time, most of us, I'd say, are kind of, we have our attachments and our aversions, but we're not really embodied with money. We're not really present with money.
You're right. You're right.
We're deeply unconscious in the way that we relate to money. And that includes me as well.
Do you believe it's possible, because there is a system, and it's not an authentic, genuine, loving, kind system that is in the interest of humanity. I think you'll agree with me that there is a system embedded into currency as we know it. So, and there's a lineage, right, of trauma, war trauma, greed trauma, oppression trauma into the currency. Is it possible then, if we consciously wish to return money to divinity, do you believe that there might be parallel systems?
Well, I think, I think that's what is evolving right now. And it's something I'm very intrigued by. I actually have a monthly group offering. It's a circle called Birthing the New Earth Economy. And the premise is that in order for us to create some of these parallel systems, we have to do our own inner transformational work and work on expanding consciousness. So it's got to come with this transcendence work. We can't create this new system without doing this work. And it's, work I've been doing on myself for many years now, and that I've been doing with clients for many years as well, consciously working on these issues at a depth level that goes beyond, and I'll get into my story a little bit around, because I know you had asked me to
I want you to
bring an example of trauma transcendence with money, either from my life or a client's life. And what came up for me was something that I thought would be relevant to more people if I shared part of my money trauma transcendence story. But it's really the depth work that is being called to be done right now, is what I feel.
Yes. One spiritual teacher that I like talks about, as goes the personal, so goes the collective.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, so we can't, if we're observing what's going on out there and we're having a reaction to maybe what we perceive as, let's say, corporate greed or something, or corporate greed / corruption. Yes. The place to then go with that is to go inside of ourselves into doing our own shadow work around that, because often the position we're in is we're hanging out on the opposite polarity, side of the polarity, the opposite extreme, which is rejecting money, which is like asceticism and denial of money. And that's ego too. Self-denial is ego too.
It's either end of the extreme.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no nobility in pushing against money or demonizing money. So our work is to look at our own shadow parts, and also to look at the shadow parts that we don't think are there, such as the greed, because if we're getting triggered by external greed, chances are it's because it's a deeply hidden shadow pattern we have too, because we all have all sides of these polarities. So
yeah, so the key to doing that consciousness work around money is to notice where we're emotionally activated.
For sure.
Like, it's one thing
our
to
triggers
say
are.
where those, which I was sharing yesterday, another spiritual teacher, Teal. It was Todd Medina who said, as goes the personal, so goes the collective. But Teal was saying, what was she saying about the triggers are the emotional flashbacks. So where is the emotional flashback that is arising? It's one thing to say, oh, there's greed in the system. And then it's another thing to feel that emotional flare up around that greed. Then that's a good indication. There's work to do there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's, it's part of reclaiming our projections, because that is an incredibly enriching and challenging part of our journey of transcendence on money or any issue, is really being able to witness, that we are actually, these are projections from us. And it's not to say there isn't any concrete reality out there, but we are powerful creators. And so this is a form of our own unconscious creation as well, I think.
Wow. Okay. So are you willing to share a transcendent story with money?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
and the journey.
Yeah, the journey. So the one that came through for me as being the most relevant, like like I said, there are so many different pieces to all of our money stories, and how I work with money in terms of doing depth work. You know this, Kaya, because I did that masterclass with you before.
Yes.
And it was on breaking through our money shadows so we can thrive. And it was focused towards practitioners.
Yeah.
And so this is the premise of a program I run called the Money, Shadow, and Prosperity Consciousness Breakthrough Group. We start by exploring the shadow pieces we have around money, and how we do that is we look at 5 basic archetypes. And this has been inspired by the work of a woman named Leslie Temple Thurston, who wrote a book a number of years ago called The Marriage of Spirit: Enlightened Living in Today's World. And she did a beautiful job of kind of integrating psychology with some of these more esoteric teachings around our attachments and aversions and polarities. And so when I work with people, or with the work I do with myself, is to identify what archetypal pattern I may be playing out with money in any given situation. And then underneath that, I look at what are the polarities that are being played out underneath that archetype. And then that leads to an exploration of the actual emotions that are very hidden, and the beliefs that are very unconscious, that tend to bubble up to the surface when we do the work the way that I do the work. And I use a variety of tools. But so this journey for me started a number of years ago when, I was working with high net worth individuals, and I was really triggered around money, them being wealthy and me not being wealthy, and
I hate
all
when
that
that
kind of
happens.
stuff.
I hate when other people are
Well,
wealthy and I'm not.
I make a really good income, but that it's a different ball game, right?
Yeah,
We're
I know what you mean.
talking like millionaires, billionaires, that
Like
kind of
private
thing.
jets.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And so what I started looking at is feeling like, looking back at my childhood, where my origins were from, because I come from a family that was a lower middle class family. And the patterning in that family was deep feelings of unworthiness or undeservability and shame. And part of that was reinforced by the religion I was raised in, which was Catholicism. And I just want to say that, this isn't knocking Catholicism, because everybody would have a different experience in their own experience. But in the context of my family, it fed into these intergenerational patterns of feeling flawed, sinful, unworthy. And so how that got translated was me growing up feeling never like I could measure up, and right into my adult years. And so when I was working with these high net individuals, I would, overperform, or, I was trying to be perfect. I was trying so hard to be perfect so that I could feel equal to them, or so I could feel that I was deserving of the money that I was earning. And so it's really interesting. So I did start doing some work on that. But, in retrospect, I'm sure it was a necessary step in my journey, of transcending my money, that particular piece of my money trauma. But what I came to realize is it was just really moving the furniture around in the prison, because the money courses and work I was doing on my feelings about money, it was really work that was kind of entrenched in the ego-based dualistic system. So an example is trying to, and a lot of it was focused on women, because women have this issue of feeling undeserving and all that. And so a lot of it was focused on developing this ego strength of feeling worthy, feeling deserving, claiming your worth, attaching your, and what it does is just, it attaches your whole sense of worth to money. And so,
and you're still in the consciousness of must strive, must
exactly,
get, must change who I am. Yeah,
exactly. And you're really just trying to go to the other side of the polarity. So you're just trying to go from feeling unworthy to feeling worthy,
super worthy.
Exactly. Yeah. So, I'd use those, and for a while I'd feel like, oh, I feel so much better about myself and money. But inevitably, because you're still in this dualistic system, you haven't really transcended the trauma. You're still acting out the trauma, and you're just swinging back and forth, because something's going to come up to trigger you into going back into those feelings of unworthiness. And that's what happened to me. And so it was a really interesting journey. And like I said, I don't want to knock those kinds of self-development tools or teachings, because there's probably a place for them, and maybe it's necessary on your journey to pass through that stage. Right. But I eventually got to the stage where I realized that, I started delving into the whole idea of polarity and transcending these dualistic ego programs. And I started, the big aha for me, the big moment of self-realization for me and transcending that particular trauma of worthy, unworthy, was realizing that they were both ego programs. So it's as much ego to feel unworthy as it is to feel worthy. And so I started doing some of that deeper work on excavating all of my attachments and aversions. Well, I'm sure there's still more to go, right? But as much as I could, excavating the attachments and aversions I had to both sides of the polarity.
That's right.
Doing the spiritual work, offering it up, praying for grace to reconcile those patterns in me, letting go of the attachments and aversions. And so the actual transcendence was in letting go of identifying with either of those, like needing to identify myself as worthy or identifying myself as unworthy, and cultivating more the feeling and the being state and the quality of humility. And humility is beyond feeling better than or less than, worthy or unworthy. So that's been the journey for me. And it was that, realization that there was that deeper work to be done.
Yeah.
That, of clearing the ego, that was the key to transcending that particular money trauma pattern for me. And I just want to also mention that in the work I've done with people over the years on these issues, on this money issue, it feels to me like the three core patterns, and this could be the core kind of trauma patterns too in general. I don't know, I could be wrong, but it feels like the three core patterns are the unworthiness pattern, the not enough pattern, and the alone pattern. They feel like the three core psychic wounds that we have individually and collectively. So that's why I use that as an example, because it does affect how we experience money and our relationship with money, but it also impacts many different areas of our lives as well. And I think it's something that we can all relate to on some level.
Yeah. Well, when you think of those three core patterns, that sounds like it's on the money, haha, pun intended. Unworthy. Not enough. Look how much those words are tied into the lexicon of money itself, reducing us to a consumer purchaser paradigm. Worthy. What's my worth? Right? Am
Exactly.
I enough? Like it's so entrenched.
Absolutely. And it's still, that language is still used in
Yeah.
many self-development arenas of, you know, around, let's say, business development or, you know, developing career development. They still use that language of claiming your worth and charging what you're worth, like
Yes.
really getting people to attach their identity to how much money they're making or how much money they're charging. And it's just being stuck in this ego pattern.
Right. Because the presumption is there's still an amount of worth, like a hierarchical pattern that you can plug yourself into, as opposed to you are infinite, beautiful, creative source flowing through you, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I
that
see.
your worth goes beyond this.
Yes.
Like your worth is unquantifiable in these terms.
Like, oh, please. Let's just blow the lid off that whole limiting paradigm of your worth. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I mean, that is definitely one of the most profound polarities and patterns that really has the most impact when we work on that particular one, because it's related to a lot of the other polarities that are associated with money as well. And like I said, it's never just about money. So when you're working on these things consciously in relation to money, you're also clearing them from a lot of different areas of your life as well.
Right. They're just showing up in that money mirror, but they'll show up in other mirrors as well. Those underlying patterns, those underlying archetypes. What are the 5 archetypes?
The 5 archetypes are the victim, the rebel, the tyrant, the savior, and the martyr. And the savior and the martyr are, they're related, they're slightly different.
Right.
So there are some nuances between the two of them. The savior is more of an seemingly empowered archetype, and the martyr is a disempowered one. The rebel and the victim are disempowered, and the tyrant is a seemingly powerful archetype. But again, then we get into the, you know, excavating all of the shadow beliefs and feelings under power and powerlessness. So
right, which they will all point to. They'll all point to powerlessness, the degree of powerlessness.
Yeah, exactly. In the context of power in our 3D egoic kind of perception of power.
Right.
But it's not the authentic power. So this is when we do the trauma transcendence work. We actually come into our genuine power. And it's not about power over other people or power over things.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It has an isness quality to it.
Yes. Yes.
An eternal is. The chat is lighting up. Do you want me to just read some of the things here?
Sure.
I don't know if you can see them.
Well, let me see if I can go in there too. Okay.
Kate is loving this discussion. And
sorry, I'm just looking underneath my camera. If you see me,
oh yes, no problem.
My camera's in
Noor is asking the core patterns that Mary was pointing to: unworthiness, not enough. The third one was alone. Mm-hmm. These are core themes that we see in our work. Once we go excavating, do that inner child work or explore the archetypes, these are the core themes that come up.
Yes.
Yeah. Joelle is saying the alone pattern reminds me of those I work with that are disenfranchised racially and through poverty. There's such an aloneness to the stigma of poverty and being disenfranchised. Yeah. Joelle wants to know where she can read more about archetypes.
Well, I just want to, Joelle, that's a good question. I can share with you some possible resources. The one that I mentioned was Leslie Temple Thurston's book, The Marriage of Spirit, because she uses I think they're kind of a modification of Jungian archetypes, but there are a lot of different systems of archetypes. Yeah. So, like I won't go into all of them. There's what's that called again? The Enneagram. They're basically a system of archetypes.
That's right. Yeah.
And I do have some clients who work with the Enneagram. My preference for the money shadow work that I do is to work with these five basic archetypes, because I find it's very easy to spot them, and we all contain all of those archetypes in us. So we can start identifying when we're acting out a certain archetype in opposition to somebody else in our life, acting the polarity archetype. And it's very illuminating, because we start seeing how, we may play the victim in certain situations habitually, and then project out a tyrant onto somebody else we're in a relationship with.
Well, we could go back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you can start there. You can also, if you want, go to my website, because Karen and I did a masterclass series a couple of years ago together, and mine was on, breaking through the money shadow. And so I go into how it applies to other money issues, and also the polarities and the underlying beliefs and feelings.
Oh, that's still on your website.
It's still on my website. If you go to, I can type it in the chat later on, but if you can go to, animturas.com. That means soul journey in Gaelic Irish. If you can go to that, and you'll see at the top, it says money program. If you go to that page, you'll about halfway down the page, you'll see the 90-minute masterclass that I did with
Karen. It's a really good one. It's a really good one. I think some people, I'm not sure.
Yeah, some people might have seen it.
And for people listening to the recording, and for Joelle, I just want to add, I think the first person to coin that phrase archetype was Carl Jung, who presented a series of figureheads, more or less, that are in the universal unconscious as having some kind of meaning, and so there's no limit except for your imagination as to the development of archetypes, like the wise woman is an archetype, or the joker, right? And so like Mary is saying, there are different systems for using archetypes to describe universal concepts that are in the collective. So yeah, your 5, I do remember from your masterclass, really do relate to where we end up finding ourselves in terms of our toxic relationship or with money, for sure.
Yes, for sure. And I'm just typing in my web address here for Joelle.
Oh, great.
Okay.
She'd like the website again, animturas.com. And go into the money section for the...
Yeah, it says money program. And you can just click on that page for the masterclass. Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. And do you find in your work, because you've really delved into this, it's your healing signature, do you find that there's a particular tool or process that stands out for people, or really is special to you in terms of helping with these changes, returning us to more authenticity through money?
Yeah, and this is the part where, like, I use a number of different tools, and I'm intuitively guided. But for the money shadow and prosperity consciousness breakthrough group program, a tool came through to me that I recorded. I like using guided visualizations a lot.
Yes.
because I find, well, you know, it's similar to hypnosis in that it helps you to bypass that conscious mind so you can actually find things that are hidden in the unconscious. So
Yes.
that's one fantastic use of guided visualizations. And so what kind of channeled through me was this guided visualization that I ended up calling Shattering the Illusion of Scarcity with Your Inner Child. And it's one of the most popular tools of the program. So I do have a truncated version of it that recently I was guided to truncate the version and to incorporate. The other thing I like using is what I'm just simply calling somatic releasing, but it's actually integrating a couple of different, what I call releasing tools into it. So I've integrated it with that Shattering the Illusion of Scarcity with Your Inner Child visualization. And if you think it's appropriate, it's not too long because I shortened it down. If you want to have a taste of it, I'm happy to guide everyone through a taste of that right now, if that's something you'd be interested in.
That would be beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Why not?
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then we'll do a debrief on how people find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So
Just
I'm
getting
gonna
comfy cozy.
Yeah, get comfy cozy on
Do you
this.
want me to do anything with the cameras? Leave the cameras on or take them off? Do you have a preference?
Oh, you can leave the cameras on. No,
While we're
I
being
did
guided?
because it's different from my original visualization. I have written it down because I want to make sure that I'm including the components that I've just integrated into it.
Yeah.
So I may look down periodically. So, but
Okay.
anyways, but I would just invite everybody to just close your eyes and bring your awareness within. And just allow your body to relax as much as possible. Slow your breathing down. And breathe deeply. Allow this to be as effortless as possible. And now imagine you're standing in the center of your heart. And in front of you is your inner child. Visualize yourself gently taking your inner child's hands in yours. Look deeply into your inner child's eyes, sending love and reassurance. Ask your inner child if it's okay for you to ask some questions. If the response is yes, ask the following questions and listen for the answers. What's a message you received that caused you pain regarding money? What beliefs and feelings did you take on as a result? Notice any images or memories that come up. Notice any areas in your body where you're feeling a sensation. Maybe this is tingling, tension, pain, or some other sensation. Just be the observer of your body sensations and notice where the strongest ones are located. Allow the beliefs and feelings and physical sensations associated with them to just be there. Now imagine a ball of gold energy representing your divine consciousness coming in through your crown and going to the area or areas of your body where these beliefs, feelings, and physical sensations are, and filling them with gold light. And say, thank you. I love you to those beliefs, feelings, and physical sensations. Send them love and gratitude. Take a deep breath. And on the exhalation, feel yourself letting go mentally, emotionally, and physically. Just notice how you feel inside. Notice if anything changed for you. Then give your inner child a hug and reassure your inner child that you're always available to heal any traumas, including money traumas. And you'll visit again soon. Now energetically sense yourself returning to your adult life in the present. Then do whatever you need to do to ground yourself. And when you're ready, and there's no rush, allow your eyes to open gently.
All right. Well, that was not expected. Where I went.
Where do you want to share?
May
where
I
you went,
share? I
Kaya?
hope I don't start
Absolutely.
crying. Like I need about a 2-hour session with you now, but
My door is always open for you.
oh, thank you. Oh wow, I'm gonna have to do some major meditating tonight. Holy shit. Yeah, so my inner child, talk about serendipity. The universe always works with us where there's intention. Do you remember the conversation that were you listening in on the conversation Joelle and I were having before
Yes.
you
Yep.
came on?
Yeah.
Okay, so keep that in mind. So yeah, then my inner child just landed in a memory with my grandmother. And it was very yeah, really obvious somatically and emotionally to me that I'm carrying a grandmother's wound. I could feel the rage. And the other interesting thing is that, and this is where my inner child guided me, and I couldn't understand why I was in that memory, but I was picking up on a grandmother's relationship with money. And it's interesting because for the last 2 weeks, I've really been struggling with this bronchial thing. And this grandmother was a chain smoker. And I just felt the feeling of I can't breathe, like I'm trapped. Like it's almost like, at the metaphysical level, there's no past, present, future. So I'm wondering if this was a precognitive thing, this somatic expression of I can't breathe, like I'm trapped, that is just a guide for me as to some more in-depth work I can do with this. Yeah.
Wow.
It's very powerful for me. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Kaya. And thank you so much for sharing that too. This is it's really amazing what comes through. And, often it is something that's hereditary.
Yeah,
that comes through
really.
in doing this work. Even if we don't know all the stories behind,
right.
Previous generations, their life experiences. And I've had that experience with different clients where they didn't know, but they brought it in. And
but I could feel it. Even if I don't know all the details,
even if you don't know the details, you can feel it. And
yeah.
So this is how the energetic resonances get passed down without us even knowing that they do.
Yes. Yeah, they sure do. Wow. Yeah, any comments or questions in the group around a debriefing? That was just, I know, a short snippet, Mary, but it was still powerful in terms of the work. Yeah. Yeah, or while you guys are coming back out of meditation, feel free to bring any questions, anything you would like some coaching on or advising on from the dear Mary, this well of wisdom. Kate also had a very powerful experience. So she's saying thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So returning money to its divine source. I love that idea. by doing this personal work, right? Raising our own consciousness
Yes,
and letting that reverberate out.
absolutely.
Hmm.
And
Beautiful.
just that piece around the intergenerational work too. And I'm sure you found this as well, Kaya, and some of the the therapists and coaches on this call. But when we do that work, and I think Joelle mentioned this as well, it's like, it's, even though we're working with somebody who's here in the present incarnation, it's like it's healing the ancestors. So it's like, because of that time space continuum collapse, it's actually healing for all of our ancestors. And I think that's how the healing at least partially happens in the collective. Right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, I believe so too. Yeah. Well, I think the amazement happens when the heart is open with intention for healing. So I think those of us in this experience with you, we were in that energy with you. And so like the gates open even wider. Yeah.
And that's what transcendence work is essentially all about. It's about, clearing the ego so we can live from the open heart. So we can live, because we don't, in the dualistic system, we contract and we open sometimes, and then we contract. And so it's really transcending that to live from the open heart.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the journey.
Yeah.
From here to here.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you, Mary. I'm not seeing any
You're
questions,
welcome.
but let us know more. You've given your website, right? If people want to learn more, or they want to join in that group, or any one of your groups, this is the website. Yes.
Yeah, it's the www.animtourist.com. And yeah, if you even just on the first page, if you scroll down, you'll see the link to the Birthing the New Earth Economy Circle, which is the monthly complimentary circle that I do. It's the last Tuesday of every month. We have one coming up this Tuesday night. Yeah, I'll write it in the chat for you, Caitlin. Just a minute. Hold on.
If you could type it. Anam, A-N-A-M-T.
Hold
like
on here. www.
Yeah. Did you get it?
Okay, I've got it here. Yeah. And so you can
you
join
did it.
That.
Sorry, Mary, you typed it out to host and panelists.
Oh, hosts and panelists.
Just switch it to everyone, because everyone.
Well, no wonder everyone didn't get it. I don't think I can switch it.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you might have to.
Everyone.
Yeah.
And while I'm typing it,
Zoom is funny.
I know. I don't know how to change the settings on that. There, I just sent it out to everyone.
Okay, awesome. Oh, you misspelled it, Kaya. It's A-N-A-M.
Oh, A-N-A-M. Yeah. I put U-M. A-N-A-M-T-U-R-A-S.
Yes.
.com.
There we go.
I love that. Yeah. I love that title, Birthing the New Earth Economy. So that's the last Tuesday night of every month. Yeah, and we're having one this Tuesday night, and we're gonna, every month we have a different theme, but the purpose is for us to do deep inner transformational work together and expand consciousness so we can bring forward our deepest gifts and birth an economy that's based on higher values and higher ways of being. So that's the purpose of it. And yeah, this week's theme is going to be on, we're looking at intentions, goals, and expectations, and how to kind of align all of these, and how to feel peaceful and serene about our intentions, goals, and expectations. Without the striving, like exactly, right? Exactly. Not be on the, what do you call it, Mary? The polarity spectrum. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not feeling overly attached, and not going into resistance, because
for a lot of people, goals trigger, and even intentions and expectations trigger
Sure.
resistance. So it's all about removing that resistance and coming from these higher ways of being of peace and serenity about our goals and intentions.
And let's do it. Let's birth the new earth economy.
Yes. And also I'd like to just mention, if any, I also offer some complimentary sessions, and one of them is called Break Through Your Money Shadow and Thrive. And we do a deep dive into some of these archetypal patterns and polarities. So if that's something you would feel would be of value to you, they're really powerful sessions, and I'm happy to extend that offer. It's a complimentary offer. Every month I do a certain number of them, so I'd like to just extend that offer, and you can find that at my website as well under complimentary sessions.
Gorgeous, gorgeous work that you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, blessings
Thank you,
to
Kaya.
you, Mary.
Well,
Thank
blessing
you so
to you.
much.
I mean, you're doing amazing work, and I love the depth of work that you're doing, Kaya, too. And what a blessing. And I just feel really honored to collaborate with you and have these kinds of really rich and meaningful conversations, and yeah, and share with your community and share this kind of support. So
yeah, we are, you and I and people on the call and listening. Yeah, I think we are the new earth, and we're willing. We're really willing to do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yes,
Well,
thank you so much, Mary.
It was a joy. It's always a joy.
I hope to see you on one of these Tuesday night groups.
Yeah, that would be awesome. And it's always a joy, Kaya. You know I love you. So thank you for inviting me.
Love you too.
Yeah. And we'll see.